My name's Matthew Harland. I'm from a very, very small country town in outback New South Wales called Cobar. It's about 800 kilometres west of Sydney in New South Wales. And I decided to do my MBA at the Copenhagen Business School in Denmark in 2015. Like Australia, the US, the UK, Germany, Japan, a lot of the big industrious type nations are very masculine in their nature. I thought if I did my MBA in any one of these parts of the world, you're going to learn to think more or less the same. So Scandinavia and Denmark specifically is more of what they call a feminine society. They're much more flat in their hierarchies. Like Australia, they don't have a lot of natural resources, yet they're very prosperous and things like that. So the Danes, in my opinion, have learnt to be very entrepreneurial and innovative, and just surrounding yourself by something so different to your own culture, I think gives you an advantage, because if you come back into your own culture, you're certainly going to stand out, and you'll, at a minimum, at least have a different perspective or new perspective on the way that you think. And just little things like that come down to the way that the Danes grade you and hold their exams in a verbal format with your professor. So I think those little subtleties certainly go a long way to shape your future mindset. You're surrounded by a very old culture with very old traditions. Australia's quite young in that sense. You're surrounded by a very small country. I think there's 5.8 million Danes. There aren't too many countries at the level that Denmark is that have a population so small. They're a social welfare system, so you pay a lot of tax and things like that, but their social aspects are very high. But I think a lot of it, to me, comes down to the cultural elements. So the Danes are very tribal and very, very collective. I feel that the Australians appear very collective, but we're actually very individualistic. And now I've had years to reflect on that. You see that in the workplace. So I think what you get from Denmark is being a part of that smaller, intimate society that do things right. They think long term, they're very innovative, and they seem to do things together in a collective manner. Coming back and saying I've got an MBA from Copenhagen, a lot of Australians are not necessarily going to respond to that particular MBA, but what I did find was that there was a huge alumni network here. So just mentioning Copenhagen Business School triggered, wow, one of our colleagues is from Copenhagen Business School, and they could have simply just done an exchange in their bachelor or master's, and they were highly regarded at a bachelor or master's level. And I think thinking about the MBA program at CBS, it's 40 or 50 people a year to 24,000 students in total. So it is a small part of the entire business school itself. But it's certainly got a very, very good level of credibility and recognition. I thought I would love corporate finance and all those quantitative subjects, but I didn't particularly enjoy them, and I thought I'd hate HR, but I did particularly enjoy HR. So I didn't necessarily find the quantitative stuff easy because I was an engineer. I think that finance is a unique subject in itself, and some people get it, some people don't. So I'd say, yeah, numbers probably gives you an advantage, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be a master at any particular subject. I think that the real way to master any of these subjects is to tune into the passion and interest, and that's always enough motivation to get you through. The one thing I did really like about Copenhagen is when you get grades, it's not a bell curve that only a certain percentage of people can get the top grade. So that means that everyone can achieve the highest grade, which at CBS is a 12. So therefore, you're not competing for that grade. And when it comes around to these subjects, I remember with corporate finance specifically, we had the gurus that were coming from banking that were helping us guys that were not so experienced with finance how to understand the subject before our exams. And then vice versa, when we had more expertise, it's something we were helping lift our colleagues to get to a better level. And therefore, there was no competitive element. Whereas in Australia, I'd say that's probably not necessarily the case. So you don't have an advantage with those numbers, and you're not particularly interested in it, you're certainly not going to get as much support either, because you are just necessarily or naturally competing in that environment. That's a very good question as well. I often reflect on my MBA, but if I reflect on myself, I would say I'm probably much more calmer. I was quite a energetic, outback kid, running wild a little bit. But the MBA, although engineering also gave me a lot of structure, the MBA just consolidated that structure, and that structure you can apply to anything you do in your life, particularly goal settings. But I'd say the main thing or the main lesson that I learned was to continually tune in with myself, because that's the one thing that's always evolving, is how you're responding to whether that's your career or your personal life, or your changing values or things like that. And the CBS MBA was very personal and taught us how to really reflect. And that's something I do daily. It's something that I'm constantly trying to better understand myself and the people around me. And with that structure that you learn, and that strategic structure, that's just a really good combination to apply all around you. It sounds a bit of a cop-out, but I'd seriously go straight back to CBS. And I was there a year ago, and I did go straight back to CBS after having been away for 2 years. And CBS wasn't just a university, an education and a master's. CBS for me was a family, and it was lifelong connections with not only colleagues but the people that support the program. It's such a beautiful location, and we spent a year of our life in that one building, working extremely hard, and just going back to that environment, I think is for me very special. And because I'm on the opposite side of the world, it's just my natural anchor in Denmark. Then I'd probably go straight to one of the local bars. Currently, I am a Director of Risk and Governance for an independent government agency called Infrastructure New South Wales. Infrastructure New South Wales was formed by a previous Premier of our state because of the risk of change in political cycles and the capital investment that they were willing to prioritise. So part of our organisation is to create a 20-year infrastructure strategy. It's to oversee and manage risk on a $100 billion capital program over the next 4 years. So I think it's the largest level of capital investment that we've ever seen, and it's much needed to support Australia's economic and productive growth. And the other element is for our organisation is to deliver a certain array of projects that are quite complex and very politically sensitive. So that's kind of our organisation. I started off looking out over the risk of a number of high-profile projects, so mainly public transport things and just trying to make sure they are guided in the right direction. But I'm now looking after organisational risk and governance. So more so the backbone and the glue of the organisation. We've just been through a merger of 3 different entities. So there's a lot there to try and harmonise and bring together and make sure that we're still doing things in the right manner. My MBA, I think, comes in use in many different ways. So I would not have got to this level where I am now as a director, I don't believe, without it. It's given me structure, confidence, fire in my belly to strive and aim high for these positions. And you can back yourself because you know that you've got a toolbox readily available, and that toolbox is flexible. It's not about corporate finance and accounting. It's about how do you take problems and then add the MBA structure and thinking to solving those problems. And I do that on a daily basis. I would say I'm sitting in a legal team without any legal background, applied to multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects. It's a very complex environment, and my MBA gives me, I think, the right mindset and attitude and ability to work through anything that comes your way. And then on the personal side as well, everything revolves around people. So going through that self-reflective leadership program at Copenhagen Business School, like I mentioned before, just it helps you tune in with yourself and helps you therefore understand other people a lot better. Copenhagen, like all institutions, offer merit-based scholarships. So I think that's an opportunity for prospective students to apply through CBS, all those sort of scholarships. I think that otherwise, friends, family, pools and financial institutions are usually where you can try and source other funds and things like that. I think it also depends on where you come from in the world. So I know if you're coming from the States, you can apply through certain loan schemes that recognise Copenhagen Business School as an institution that is credible or something like that. So I think it really depends where you're coming from. As an Australian, you really just need to either work and save hard or talk to your family. I think even for us, it's difficult to get a financial institution to sponsor that as an Australian. I don't think people are worried about Copenhagen or concerned or anything. I think that the way that the Australian system is set up is we have a government loan system whenever you study at a tertiary institution. So if I was to do my MBA in Australia, maybe my employer would sponsor me, or at least sponsor a portion of that fee. If not, then the government would pay for it, and then you pay it back when you earn a certain salary level, and that's a percentage range over time. So that's, for instance, how my undergraduate engineering degree was set up. It's how every Australian's educational degrees are set up. So as soon as you choose to go outside of Australia, whether that's Denmark or anywhere abroad, you do not get that government system, and therefore you have to put your tuition fees up front in cash. So that's probably one structural barrier going abroad. In terms of Denmark, I had no idea about Copenhagen Business School initially, and somehow stumbled across the school when listening to a TED talk from some Danish author that wanted to build a 3-kilometre tall mountain in Denmark. So it was a very strange way. I don't think it was purposefully marketed that way, but once I did stumble across it, and I was looking at Stockholm, Gothenburg, Amsterdam, UK. So I was looking kind of in the area, but I just accidentally stumbled across CBS. But once I saw it, it was love at first sight for me. So it was an alignment. It was a one-year program. It was a small class. When you look at the Danish society, you get to know the Danes. They are sarcastic. They drink a lot of beer. They don't take themselves too seriously. So there is a lot of synergy between Aussies and the Danes. And they're very receptive to Aussies as well. So it's an easy adaptation going from our culture to theirs. So I don't see why not. It's probably just a matter of getting through some of those little barriers and accepting also that they don't make you study the MBA in Danish. It's all in English. I was actually fortunate to travel around the world after my MBA and meet a lot of alumni that range from 1 year to 10 plus years, and they all had the same message, and the message was that Copenhagen Business School and the MBA was extremely personal. It was very intimate. Being in a class with 40 to 50 people meant that you really could come together, and I think that's a special bond that's very unique to Copenhagen Business School. And with other schools, you may get a larger network of 400 or 500 people per year, but I guarantee that this network, after spending a year in a room with 40 or 50 people, is going to be more valuable and close to your heart. And that's all I'd say. I'd say that Copenhagen was a dream for me. It was a dream that came true, and I'm very content and fulfilled to be able to say that I have lived one of my many dreams, and to also say that it's the first place I'd go back to if I was in Denmark. I think says a lot about the respect for the people that are there and the experience that I had. And still to this day, it's an experience that I reflect on almost daily. So yeah, no regrets, and I would only encourage people to consider Copenhagen Business School.